more can I say?
Top Billin.
I'm from any W Jersey.
Yo, I believe the Seattle Seahawks are in a can't-lose situation. This happens to be the deepest coaching pool I think I've ever seen. It's crazy, man. Listen, looking at these 8 candidates to replace the great Pete Carroll, right? You know, somebody's going to leave some really lofty standards and lofty expectations there. You couldn't get it any better than having that go in this particular cycle. I would have to think that that's the reason why they moved off of Pete Carroll, because they knew that this would be a deep cycle here. Now, looking at some of these candidates like Raheem Morris, my man from out here in Jersey. Anybody remember Youngry? Nah, you probably don't. That was when my man was in Tampa doing big things with Josh Freeman and those guys out there. They couldn't quite get over the hump there, but they had 2 juggernauts in the division at that particular time, in the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons, 2 perennial playoff teams, but teams that were reaching the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl and everything. So that man right there deserves a second chance. I've said that for the last however many years. He can coach his ass off. You talk about a guy who can coordinate some defenses. You talk about a guy who is a great teacher, right? A great defensive back teacher. He could do wonders with those guys that they have in Seattle. No doubt about that. It will be about the plan that he would have on offense, to me, that could set him over the top. Jairo Evero. This guy from that Fangio scheme, right? So I'm not a big fan of the Fangio scheme, but he had some really good success coming up out of there, right? He spent that time in San Francisco with the Jim Harbaugh era when they had Vic Fangio. So he was a defensive assistant under him. But, man, he's gone on and done his thing this one year in Carolina. They had a really good defense there, and they had some really good personnel in Carolina. The Seahawks played Carolina, so people out there should know that, man. He's a good candidate. I'm not sure right now if it's the time for him, but, hey, I wouldn't be mad if I was a Seattle fan and they ended up with this guy. He's one of those wizard type, you know what I'm saying, one of those prodigy type cats there. All right here. So now we're gonna have to double back right here. So this is gonna be a point of, I don't know, consternation for your boy, because listen, when I first started this coaching search thing, I did a video on Eric Bieniemy, and I said, listen, we don't have to go beyond Eric Bieniemy. We can discuss him, because I'm going to try to get to most of these candidates out there. But, of course, you know how it goes there. You can see it right here. I type in Dan Quinn on this particular video right here, and most of the people out there were wanting Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn. Nobody wanted to talk about nobody but Dan Quinn. You get some Ben Johnson in there. I see a Mike Vrabel there, but I could go on and on and on with Dan Quinn. It's going to be Dan Quinn, this and that, right? So since that video was a disaster, I was like, you know what? Let the fans pick the next video. So then we don't have to hear all that bullshit. I don't have to get mad, because out east, baby, right? If you can't concentrate on the topic, man, you liable to get smacked in your damn lips, for real, right? So I let the fans pick it. Look, 39%, 4,000 votes, 39% of the people wanted Dan Quinn, the Cowgirls DC, right? You had Ben Johnson second with 32%. Mike Vrabel ended up third. Eric Bieniemy fourth with 12%, and then you had Brian Flores bringing up the rear here with 3% of the votes. So I do the Dan Quinn video, giving my honest assessment about my time covering him when I used to cover the Atlanta Falcons, saying stuff like, so I have a lot of time on task dealing with the Atlanta Falcons. At the time, Dan Quinn was the coach, and that was his last season. Dan Quinn, listen, y'all know me. I'm Jersey to the bone core, right? My man is from North Jersey. Dan Quinn, right? Great DC. He's had nothing but success as a DC. We saw that when he was staying there. But, man, his defenses with the Falcons sucked. And he had more than enough time for them not to suck. From Seattle's standpoint, sometimes, man, you can't keep going back to the same well. Extension of Pete Carroll. But you guys always claim to want to do something different on defense. His defense isn't quite like it was back in the day. It's evolved and everything. But, man, you're talking about very much the same philosophical approach. That's what you want to do. You don't want to do anything different, right? And then this happened. The Cowgirls got their boot smoked by the Green Bay Packers in another first-round exit for the 30th year in a row, and then people tried to pretend like they didn't like Dan Quinn in the first place. I'm talking about flip-floppy, Joe-ass, flimsy, goofball type people who were bombarding my Eric Bieniemy video with Dan Quinn comments. People coming to tell me, so-and-so said Dan Quinn should be the coach. KJ Wright said Dan Quinn should be the coach and all this and that. And I'm like, damn. If one game could knock you off of a candidate, did you actually believe in that candidate in the first place? Because he has way more games than just that one game. He has a big sample size in Dallas of him making them a top 5 defense, like top 5, top 10 in turnovers and all kinds of stuff. So it can't just be one game. I think people are just, I don't know, man. It's too much of the go along, get along gang on the internet, right? Everybody wants to be right. Or everybody, or most people don't want to have to deal with the repercussions of being different. That's usually what it is. But your boy's not like that. I said before, I'm not a Dan Quinn fan. I think the Seahawks could do much better. The first person that I suggested was your man, Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions, right? Now, look at the new poll I ran afterwards. So I moved to round 2 of the poll because my goal was to do it tournament style. Like whoever got out of a certain bracket would then be placed in another bracket with people. And then I put them against some guys who people were mentioning then afterwards, right? So this time I throw Ben Johnson in there. My original guy that I said, man, maybe a month or 6 weeks ago when I felt like something could happen with Seattle at the head coach position. And really was nobody talking about it, right? So Ben Johnson, I said it before and I say it again. This is my pick. However, I'm releasing this video before the Detroit Lions game, and if something happens to him, then you will have the same type of flip-floppy Joe type cats who will become like, oh no, Ben Johnson sucks. So you have to be solid as a man first and foremost. But you have to be solid just in general. You know what I mean? Like, if you believe something over a certain period of time and somebody gives you a bigger sample size or a pretty decent size sample size, one game or one instance, none of that should change your opinion. So now look at Dan Quinn. He was in 4th place, right? So you got Ben Johnson with 35% of the votes. This time 5.7 thousand votes. You have Mike Macdonald, or guy. If it's not Ben Johnson and they want to go defense, I don't see how Mike Macdonald is not the choice. My thing is do something different. Go on the offensive side of the ball, get yourself a young quarterback in the draft and have those guys grow together, and then the offense does not have to change throughout his time. You can see it right now with Jordan Love and Mike LaFleur. That is perfect, especially after he sat behind Aaron Rodgers. If you did end up keeping Drew Lock or Geno Smith, he can learn behind those guys while learning the offense, and it does not have to change. You get an offensive play caller, not just an offensive head coach like the Eagles have, where somebody's just a cheerleader like Coach Sirianni. A real live Andy Reid type play caller like you see with Ben Johnson, I believe would be that. Bobby Slowick with the Houston Texans, I believe would be that. These are the guys you go out in court. But if it's a defensive guy, I would do the same deal, and you would know that your defense should be good if he's the guy. Now, Seattle, over the course of the last few years, have really dipped defensively. Mike Macdonald can be the answer for that, right? So I don't know what that would mean on offense. That's what being a head coach is about. So while he might be a great defensive coordinator, you don't know what the plan will be on offense or if he's able to even develop a plan that somebody could be successful with there. So, but he would be a great choice. He would be a 1B choice if you ask me. Jim Harbaugh. So I originally talked about him in the Eric Bieniemy piece, and I said it would be goofy to go and get Jim Harbaugh. He's a longtime rival. If Pete Carroll's going to be in that building, how are they going to coexist? They don't like each other. It shit don't make sense to me to even be a fan of some team and then be talking trash about this dude, and then the minute he's available and your guy's gone, then you want to be on his nuts. That's flip-floppy cornball type shit. So it doesn't look like they're going to be going in that direction. They didn't even give this guy an interview. So imagine that. So they probably felt the same exact way as I felt about the situation there. And then you have Bobby Slower. But look, 14% of the for Dan Quinn after he flopped with that playoff game. That's crazy. All right, he was a runaway in the first bracket. Then he's 14% against the rest of these dudes right here. I would imagine had he won or had the Dallas Cowboys won that game and they had a good showing, he would have been number one in this particular poll too, because a lot of it was dealt on legacy. A lot of people just want to follow that Pete Carroll legacy and they want to live in 2013 and 2014, and he provides that. That was some really golden years for Seattle, and he will provide that. But it just goes to show you how people are just wishy-washy, straight up, right? And I mentioned Tampa OC Dave Canales. I believe that guy will be a really good choice as well. He's doing some really good things out there, and he would definitely call his plays as well. He's definitely a guy you could bridge with Geno Smith in a young quarterback as well. So I was going to run him in the third round. So I'll probably get the round 3 poll out here pretty soon after these games here, so we don't have any flip-flopping. All right. Real quick, moving on past Quinn there. Raheem Morris we talked about, Ben Johnson we talked about, Frank Smith. Now, getting a guy from that Mike McDaniel system, which is the Kyle Shanahan system, we know you guys really love that, right? I'm always weirded about everybody in the same division running the same offense. That shit is mad strange. You talk about a copycat league. And I'm tired of everybody copying the brotherly shove too. The shit is mad annoying. But hey, if you want another guy, you want another shot at that, right? You got the Sean McVay guy. And then you can bring in the Kyle Shanahan guy behind that as far as Frank Smith right here. I don't know. So we've seen all those guys come from Kyle Shanahan, and obviously they never called plays before, but a lot of them have had a lot of success coming from Kyle Shanahan and not calling plays. So he would be a guy to look at, no doubt about that. I love Patrick Graham. I loved his defenses when he was in the New York Giants. Very aggressive defense there. I could definitely see him being a head coach sometime soon. So somebody should definitely take a look at him. We already talked about Bobby Slowick, Mike Kafka. I love, right? He's a former Philadelphia Eagle, and he's coming from Andy Reid's system out in Kansas City. Now, he didn't have the best of talent to work with the New York Giants. Terrible offensive line play, suspect weapons to throw to. So they did not have a good showing there, in my opinion, but I think he's very talented. So, man, a lot of good candidates I don't see, even with Dan Quinn, right? I said that I'm not a big Dan Quinn guy, but he has done some really good stuff in his league. If he was the choice, and depending on who he brings as an offensive coordinator, if you can get one of these guys, one of these Shanahan-type guys that's under the radar, something like that, maybe he can have that similar success that he had in Atlanta for a couple of seasons, where, of course, they went to the Super Bowl and made the playoffs. So, I don't know, but seems like a can't-lose situation with this amount of talent at the coaching position available. Man, when's the last time we saw something like this? Let me know, all right? It's your boy Jersey Murph. As always, thank you to everybody out there. Big ups to all the real live supporters out there, too, man. I'm going to give you guys enough credit. You guys keep the ship rolling, and much love to all you guys out there throughout all the teams that I covered, all right? Salute.
What more can I say?
Top Billin.